When my daughter-in-law told me to leave, I smiled instead of crying. It wasn't a happy smile. You must understand that. It was the smile you wear when you finally see the truth, clear and sharp, after years of seeing only a pleasant blur. It was the smile of a long journey ending at a cliff's edge. All you can do is look down and smile. She stood in the doorway of what I had called home for 6 years. Her arms were crossed. The afternoon sun cut across the hallway, lighting up the dust in the air between us.
It was a Tuesday.
A very ordinary Tuesday. She said, "Margaret, I think it's time you found your own place. We need our space. The children are older." Daniel agrees. Daniel, my son. And I smiled. My lips just turned up.
My eyes stayed dry.
In that moment, I didn't think of the packing, or where I would go, or the loneliness waiting for me. I thought of a small boy with scraped knees running to me in this very house, his voice loud and sure. "Mum will fix it." I thought of the man he became, walking past me now in silence, his eyes on his phone, as if I were just another piece of the furniture he'd grown used to. I had stood beside him always. Through every stumble, every heartache, every victory. I was the constant background to his life. But somewhere along the way, he stopped seeing me. He stopped seeing the person and only saw the presence. A familiar shadow in his home. And when you become a shadow, you can be asked to leave without anyone thinking it will hurt. So I smiled. And I said, "All right. I'll start looking tomorrow. My name is Margaret. I'm 68 years old. For 40 years, I was a wife. For 35 of those, I was a mother. And for the last 6, I have been a grandmother living under my son's roof. It's a common story, I suppose." My husband, Thomas, passed away suddenly. A heart attack that took him between one breath and the next. Our home, full of his laughter and my memories, felt too loud with silence. The walls seemed to whisper back at me. Daniel, my only child, was worried. He was married to Chloe then for about 8 years. They had 2 beautiful children, Lily and Sam. Lily was 7, Sam just 4, when Thomas died. Daniel said, "Mum, sell the house. Come live with us. We have the spare room. You shouldn't be alone. And the kids, they'd love to have you." It felt like a lifeline. In the deep, cold waters of my grief, it was a warm, strong hand reaching down. I sold our family home. I gave most of the furniture to my nieces. I packed my life into boxes and a few suitcases. I brought my favorite teacup, Thomas's reading lamp, and our photo albums. I arrived at their modern semi-detached house with its clean lines and empty garden, holding hope tightly in my chest. At first, it was a bomb. The children were a riot of noise and energy. They filled the quiet spaces I had brought with me. Lily would climb into my bed for stories. Sam would build elaborate block towers just for me to knock down with a playful finger. I cooked meals. Not just my son's favorites, but new recipes I found online. I wanted to be useful. I wanted to earn my place. Chloe was polite. She was a career woman, sharp and efficient. She ran her household like a small, friendly business. I was a new variable in her equation. She was never unkind. But sometimes, when I'd rearrange the dishes in the dishwasher after she loaded it, I'd see her press her lips together. A tiny, silent line of frustration. I'd stop and say, "Oh, I'm sorry, dear. Old habits." She'd smile a thin smile and say, "It's fine, Margaret." Daniel was happy. He'd come home from work, kiss Chloe, hug the kids, and give my shoulder a squeeze. "All right, Mum," he'd ask. "Having the kids run you ragged?" He'd say things like, "Isn't it great having Mum here?" The house always smells of fresh baking. He saw the idea of me, the helpful, baking, story-reading grandmother idea. And for a while, that idea was enough for me, too. I had my routines. I'd wake early, make tea, and look out at their neat patio. I'd do the school run when Chloe was busy. I'd mend socks and sew buttons. I felt nestled. Not quite in my own nest, but in a branch very close by. I thought this was the new chapter. The quiet, supportive years where I could watch my family bloom from the front row. I didn't know then that from the front row, you are also clearly visible. Every expression on your face, every sigh, every moment of stillness is seen. And sometimes, the audience doesn't want to be watched while they perform their own lives. The first crack was so small. A hairline fracture. You wouldn't even call it a conflict. It was about a vase. My vase. A simple blue glass vase Thomas had bought me on a trip to the coast. I'd placed it on the console table in the living room with some dried lavender from my old garden. One evening, I came out to find it gone. In its place was a modern, ceramic sculpture. All angles and gray glaze. I asked Chloe, "Oh, did the vase get broken?" She was scrolling on her tablet. "The blue one?"
No.
I just thought it looked a bit dated. "This is from a new local artist. It freshens up the space, don't you think?" My words stuck in my throat. Dated. My memory, my treasure, was dated. I simply nodded.
Yes.
"It's very nice." Later, I found my blue vase on a high shelf in the utility room, behind the laundry detergent. I took it down, wiped the dust off, and put it in my bedroom. It felt like hiding a friend. That was the pattern. My small touches. A crocheted blanket over the sofa arm, my specific brand of tea bags in the cupboard, the radio tuned to my classical station, slowly disappeared, replaced by other things, better things, newer things. The house was shedding my skin. I tried to talk to Daniel. Once, over a cup of tea, I said, "Daniel, do you and Chloe, are you happy with me being here?" He looked up from his phone, surprised. "Mom, of course. Don't be silly. You're a huge help." He patted my hand. "Chloe loves having you. She says you're much better with the kids' maths homework than she is." He went back to his screen. The conversation was over. He hadn't really heard the question. He'd heard the worry, and he'd plastered it over with a compliment. The way you tell a child the monster isn't under the bed. The children grew. Lily turned 13. She stopped asking for stories. She started spending hours in her room, the beat of her music throbbing through the walls. When I'd ask about her day, she'd say, "Fine, Nana," in that universal teenage tone that means please stop existing. Sam, now 10, was obsessed with video games. His world was on a screen. The real-world Nana, who made biscuits, was less interesting than a digital warrior. My usefulness was shrinking. The school runs ended. The homework became too advanced. My baking was now too sugary, replaced by Chloe's healthy, seed-filled granola bars. The dinners were the worst. We'd all sit at the table. Daniel and Chloe would talk about work, about people I didn't know, about politics that felt like a foreign language. The kids would fidget. I'd sit there, smiling. Warmth, memory, love. At dinner, Sam took one bite and made a face. "It's chunky," he said. Chloe tasted it. "Did you use tin tomatoes, Margaret?"
We only use passat now.
The seeds and skin can be bitter for the kids. "Oh," I said. "I just used what was in the pantry." "The tinned ones were for chili," Chloe said, her voice crisp. "I'll make a note on the shopping list. It's important we're consistent." Daniel was shoveling food into his mouth, reading a news alert on his phone. Something in me, the something that had been shrinking for years, suddenly snagged. "It's the way I've always made it," I said, my voice a little firmer than I intended. Daniel loved it. "It's his father's recipe." Daniel looked up, sensing a change in the weather. "It's fine, Mum. It's nice." "It's not about being nice, Daniel," Chloe said, turning to him. "It's about creating a standard. The kids are picky. We have a system." A system. I was outside the system. My 40-year-old recipe was a glitch in the system. "I am sorry," I said, standing up, my voice trembling. I did not mean to disrupt the system. I was trying to do something good. For my family. The word, my, hung in the air. It was the wrong word. This was not my family.
Not in that way.
Not anymore. Chloe put her fork down. "Margaret, please don't be dramatic. It's just sauce." But it wasn't. It was never about the sauce. It was about every vase moved, every silent dinner, every conversation I wasn't part of. It was about me feeling myself fade away in the house I thought was my shelter. It's not just sauce, I heard myself say, and the room went still. Even the children stared. I never raised my voice. It is the last thing I know how to do for you all. And it's wrong. I am wrong in this house. I am in the way. Daniel stood up.
Mom, stop it.
You're upsetting everyone. I looked at my son. His face was annoyed, embarrassed. He was managing a scene. I was causing a scene. In his perfect, systematic home. Daniel, I said, my anger dissolving into pure, aching sadness. Do you even see me? Do you see me? Or do you just see a problem in your pantry? He blinked. He didn't answer. He just said, why don't you go and lie down? You're tired. And there it was. The final dismissal. My real emotion, my heart laid bare, was reduced to a symptom of fatigue. I was not a person with valid feelings. I was a tired old woman who needed to lie down. I didn't cry. I just nodded. I left my half-eaten plate of wrong sauce on the table. I walked to my room. I closed the door. And I stood there in the middle of the room that was never really mine, and I listened to the silence from the dining room. No one came to check. No footsteps in the hall. They were probably just relieved the disruption was gone. That night, I heard them talking again. Their voices were clearer now. Decisive. That's it, Daniel. I can't live like this. The tension. It's not fair on the kids. It's not fair on us. She's unhappy. We're unhappy. She needs her own life. A long, heavy sigh. Then my son's voice. Defeated. You're right. I'll talk to her tomorrow. I didn't sleep. I watched the streetlight paint a rectangle on my ceiling. I thought of Thomas. I whispered to the dark. What do I do now? But the ghost of my husband had long since left this house. I was truly alone. The talk came the next evening. Chloe delivered it. Daniel stood behind her, a silent sentinel. He couldn't even look me in the eye. And I smiled. Leaving was a quiet earthquake. It didn't destroy the landscape, but it shifted everything beneath the surface. I found a small flat, a studio apartment in a quiet block for seniors. It had a balcony just big enough for 2 chairs and a plant. When I told the estate agent I'd take it, my voice didn't shake. I felt numb, efficient. I packed my boxes again. My life had distilled even further. The blue vase, the photo albums, my clothes, a few books. The day I moved out, Daniel helped me carry the boxes to the small rental van he'd hired. He was brisk, cheerful in a hollow way. You'll love the independence, Mum, he said. You can have things just how you like them. Watch your programs. It'll be a new start. He spoke as if he were granting me a favor, releasing me from captivity. He didn't see that he was releasing himself. Chloe gave me a stiff hug. We'll visit soon, she said, the promise hanging in the air, light and insubstantial as a cobweb. The children gave me distracted hugs, already turning back to their world. I stood on the pavement, looking back at the house. The neat garden, the clean windows. It looked like a picture from a magazine, a picture I was no longer in. Then I got in the van and Daniel drove me to my new life. The first night in the flat was the loneliest of my life. The silence here was different from the silence after Thomas died. That silence was full of memory. This silence was empty. It was a blank page I was too tired to write on. But a strange thing happened with the dawn. The sun came through my new window, hitting a different wall. I made tea in my own kitchenette. I put my blue vase on the table. And I sat. There was no system to follow. No one to be in the way of. The quiet was mine. The weeks passed slowly. I joined a library. I started a small potted herb garden on my balcony. I met a neighbor, Evelyn, a widow who liked to knit. We began having tea together on Tuesdays. It was not a passionate friendship, but it was
kind.
It was company without obligation. Daniel called every Sunday. His calls were like weather reports. Brief, full of facts. Work's busy. Lily's got a school play. Sam won his football match. The weather's been awful. How are you? I'm fine, I'd say. And slowly, it started to become true. Evelyn and I went to the garden center. I'm reading a fascinating book. There would be a pause on his end. I think he was surprised I had things to report. That I had a life that didn't revolve around waiting for his call. The first time they came to visit, it was awkward. They stood in my small space like tourists, not knowing what to touch. Chloe complimented everything. Oh, what a cute little sink. It felt like she was patting me on the head. The children were bored within minutes. Daniel kept looking at his watch. But as they were leaving, Lily, now 14, paused at the door. She looked around my flat. At my photos, my knitting basket, my one bookshelf. She looked at me. Really looked. She said, "It's really you in here, isn't it, Nana?" My eyes filled then for the first time. "Yes, my love," I said. "It really is." That was the moment I began to understand. In their house, I was trying to be a version of myself that fit their story. The helpful grandma, the quiet background. But I had squeezed myself so small, I had almost vanished. Here, in this blank space, I had to expand again. I had to remember who Margaret was, without the titles of wife, mother, grandmother. It was terrifying, and it was freeing. I stopped waiting for their visits. I stopped counting the days between Daniel's calls. The love didn't disappear. It just changed shape. It was no longer a love that lived in daily service, in constant proximity. It became a love that existed across distance. A love that could breathe. One Sunday, Daniel called. His voice was different. Flat. Tired. He talked about the kids, work, then he went quiet. "Mom," he said. "Yes, dear?" "Chloe and we're going to counseling. Things have been tough." And I didn't say, "I told you so." I didn't feel vindicated. I felt a deep, maternal ache.
My son was in pain.
The perfect system in his perfect house was creaking. "I'm sorry to hear that, Daniel," I said softly. "That must be very hard." He sighed, a long, slow exhalation I could hear through the phone. "It is. He didn't finish. I knew what he missed. He missed the idea he'd had. The idea of a happy, easy life with a helpful mother in the spare room, making everything smoother. He didn't miss me, with my needs and my feelings and my wrong tomato sauce. He missed the symbol. And now the symbol was gone, and he was facing the real, complicated work of his own life. "I'm here, Daniel," I said. And for the first time, I said it not from a place of neediness, but from a place of strength. I was here in my own life. And I could be a harbor for him if he needed it, not a resident in his ship. It has been a year now. I am sitting on my balcony, writing this in my mind. The rosemary in my pot is thriving. I have a circle, small but mine. Evelyn. A book club with 3 other ladies from the building. I volunteer at the charity shop on Thursdays. I am a person again. Daniel still calls. The counseling, he says, is helping. He talks a little more now. Sometimes he even asks for advice. Not about big things, but small things. How do you get stubborn pasta sauce off a pan, Mom? In those moments, I am not a problem or a symbol. I am just his mom, with a bit of knowledge he needs. He brought the children over last week, just him. We made biscuits. The old-fashioned, sugary kind. We made a mess. Lily, now 15, stayed behind after Daniel and Sam went to get the car. She helped me wash up. "Nana," she said, her hands deep in suds. "I'm sorry we were so rubbish to you when you lived with us." I put a soapy hand on her arm. "Oh, my dear. You were just being children. And I was a bit lost. We all were."
She
leaned her head on my shoulder for a second. A brief, precious wait. "I like you better here," she said honestly. "You shine more." I stood beside him always, my son.
until he stopped seeing me.
And I had to leave for him to even begin to look again. Not at the grandmother in his house, but at the woman who is his mother. The lesson is not a grand one. It is simple and it aches. Love does not mean losing yourself. Caretaking does not mean erasing your own outline. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for your children is to show them how to live a full life, even when it is a life apart from them. To show them that you are still a person, with a self that exists beyond their needs. I am not just a mother. I am Margaret. I like quiet mornings. I grow rosemary. I burn my toast sometimes. I am learning to be alone without being lonely. And in this small flat, with my own blue vase on the table, I am finally fully seen, even if it's only by myself. And that, I have learned, is enough. It is more than enough. It is everything.